Hey, what's up, fam? I know it's been a long time since you've seen us, but we the Three Tokens. You have myself, LC, James, and our good buddy
What's up?
CP is back with us as well. We didn't post anything last week. Obviously, you could probably tell. We didn't think it was kind of right. Just take that time to just have that moment of silence and think. A lot of voices need to be heard, not ours. So we let that time kind of elapse. So now we're kind of back into that groove. And today, just want to have a reflection over everything that has happened, what's going on now, what our thoughts and what kind of predictions of what will happen, and kind of what are some of the changes and positive things that we think will come of everything. So I just kind of jump right into it. If you don't know what we're talking about, pretty much just the George Floyd incident, the unnecessary death that happened with the police officer and things like that, and kind of how it sparked a lot of peaceful protesting, which turned into unpeaceful protesting, which turned into looting and rioting and all of the Facebook comments that followed. Just like I said, just open it up. What do you guys think so far? I guess we'll start from the beginning of just the actions that happened. What are your thoughts and things like that on it?
I mean, straightforward. I mean, it's obvious, like that there's a power struggle. That one side seems to have way too much power, and another side obviously just hasn't. And it's like, I mean, whether you see it as a race thing or an injustice thing, whatever your opinion is on it, the police have a lot of physical, legal, whatever type of monetary, backing that they can kind of do a lot of things that, whether good or bad, they don't have a lot of repercussions. Like, there's a lot of things that they can get away with.
Yeah, I was looking because I try not to talk on things all the time. Like sometimes you get emotional and you just let it rip. And you do that in privacy. But like when you talk publicly or with other people, I try not to like jump into conversations until I like understand a little bit more just around the topic. But like I know from kind of some of the research I've been doing and a lot of things I've been looking up, it's like really hard for police officers to get fired for anything wrong that they do. Mainly just because of their unions. And so I think that the fact that the guys that did the crime did get arrested, I thought that was a huge, like, I guess, positive step and
Mm,
everything like that. But I think it's kind of like a culmination of everything. If you think about it, just how did we get here? I saw something that was like, it took all of sports being cut off, movies being cut off, everybody watching everything on Netflix, and us being forced in the house to address like issues that have been going on for a long time without distractions. And I think that this is just like kind of like the culmination of like all of those things being peeled away. And then you're just seeing like, oh, well, maybe everything isn't as cool or as smooth as we thought it was.
yeah.
I
I
say
mean, we're
we as in
seeing,
people, not us.
no,
Yeah.
you're right. We're seeing a lot of things affecting people that it normally wouldn't affect, and they're upset about it. Like, I mean, a simple thing like unemployment. I know a lot of people are on unemployment right now. There's a lot of people that are on unemployment that never would be in a normal scenario. And they're like, man, this website is horrible. Man, when we call in, I can't get any help. Oh, man, they don't have a good system for this. And it's like, I know they don't have a good system for it. Imagine the people that are on it all the time, or like are on it in personal or their personal times when it's hard. It's like, I don't know why it took a global event for people to realize like we don't have a great system for that. But maybe because other people are experiencing it for once, maybe we'll get like a positive change from that.
Yeah.
Man, my reflection in the past few weeks is what has happened. It just kind of like set me off, like anger wise. And look, Warren, I'm the same way with that. Um, I was trying to keep it to myself as much as possible, share with my wife, and then you start seeing people speak out about it from a different perspective. And then
Yeah.
that kind of set me off because I'm like, okay, now I got to say something because they're seeing it through their lens. And I mean, this is something that's been going on for decades upon decades. And you see the videos out there when the first week, when it happened over that weekend, when it coming through, just like I'm on Twitter and I'm just seeing it live feed. But if we even rewind this all the way back before COVID, we go COVID, and then we hear about a man getting shot while jogging.
Yeah.
Yet it almost went 2 months. These people that
without
just they can stay in their home and or anything 2 months, and you hear about it. And I'm like, how is that justice? I don't get that. And then we go a little bit in, and you see this Amy Cooper thing going on, and at first I was like, what? And we've heard the Karens and stuff like that. There's a phrase for it, and you see something like that, and I listen to a lot of things like Trevor Noah. I listen to Phil DeFranco. I listen to those things, and that idea of like, oh, ignorance is bliss. Well, that wasn't ignorance. That was purposely weaponizing a skin color, and you knew that relationship, and you use that as a fear against someone and trying to weaponize it. I'm like, no. And then we get to this, and I think Killer Mike. I don't know why his name is Killer Mike. But when he
he's
has to
actually
go
a super nice guy. Like,
I'm like his name is very. I don't know who he's trying to go with an intimidating name, but he said it best. He said we're basically watching murder porn, 9 minutes of murder porn. Because I saw the clip, everyone saw the clip, 9 minutes, and I think that lawyer said he was counting down, not 2, not 3, 9 minutes. That's you get
9 minutes is a long time, bro. Like
I do a plank for 1 minute and I'm struggling and I'm like, the time slows down. That's 9 minutes.
I mean, I'm just thinking like normal stuff. You send me a YouTube video and it's 9 minutes. I'm like, bro, what? Why? 9 minutes? I don't have 9 minutes. Like, what do you? I have like 2 minutes. My attention span is 2 minutes. But something like that. It's like you're watching it and you're like, how is this still going on? Like, not how is it still going on in time? You're like, he's been sitting on his back for 5 minutes and on that neck. But I'm saying like at 5 minutes, I'm not saying 5 minutes is okay, but I'm saying at 5 minutes that man still hasn't processed. I am hurting this person.
Yeah, I have two things I want to say. I want to go back to what CP said earlier, and then I'll come back to address the amount of time that it was spent like in that position. But what you were saying, like you were keeping it to yourself and just kind of dealing with all the emotions internally. And me and Don, when we were driving in the car, I was just kind of talking. I was like, I'm just frustrated about it, and I don't really understand it and everything like that. Just like how this is acceptable and okay, but you just kind of deal with those emotions, and then like you get online and you just see people just start throwing out stuff and just saying things and just like being aggressively wrong and everything like that. I was like, and no, even though they are good people and it didn't come out to attempt to hurt my feelings personally. Just seeing what they were saying, I was like, this hurts me. And so then it forced me to actually like go and write. It was funny. I was like, I talked to a lot of other people and they're like, man, this has just been a rough week for me. Like a lot of people have been feeling like the emotional weight of what's been going on in the protests and things like that. So they've been feeling down. And I'm like, yeah, you're feeling down about the emotional weight and the weight of everything and the protests and writing because you're worried about like, how far will this extend? Will this go into your family and your neighborhood and everything like that? But I'm like, I'm frustrated because like you guys are saying all of this and justifying it by like saying, oh, well, if you're going to loot, your cause means nothing. But we're dying.
Yeah.
So,
well, that and again, like I don't want to cut you off, but like I'm not saying looting and rioting is the way to get stuff done. But like you can't just say like, oh, if you were peaceful, it would be fixed. It's like no, it's not because we've done that.
And you see that
forever.
And I hate to bring up sports into that. When Kaepernick was doing the kneeling, they're like, no, there's not a right way to do it. There's like, you can't do that. You can't protest that way.
Yeah.
And then you go into nothing. Well, you can't protest this way. Oh, well, you can't ask for it this way. I'm like, okay, there's no right way to protest. I'm sorry.
There's no right way to protest.
There isn't. And I have friends that talked about the rioting because that was the first thing they drew. It was like, oh, they're rioting and stuff like that. I'm like, there was a social contract. So in the United States or any society, you sign a social contract. You follow the laws. you do your stuff. Even if you're down on your luck and you're hurting, there's people that still go by that social contract. But when you're a particular minority of that group and you feel like that social contract has been broken multiple times that you agree to, at that point, it gets to this. And that's what we're seeing time and time again. Because this death is not different from a man being choked out 4 years ago, or two men getting called in a Starbucks because they were there for a meeting. It keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah,
and eventually
there's an endless number of examples that we know about that got popular on the media. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of examples would be, even in the past 20 years, if you could figure out every single time, something happened. And it's not always, a race thing, but a lot of the times it is.
If we didn't have these,
Mm-hmm.
just think about all the times when my phone broke and my camera did not work, I was paranoid to get my phone replaced because I needed my phone.
Don't have somebody, and even if you have a phone, but it happens to you, you may not be the one that can record it. Or two, if you do record it, they're just gonna say like, "Oh, he just recorded his side of what happened." Like you have to have another person there.
By the end of April, I was watching videos on YouTube about like what happens when you get pulled over, being black. What do you do? What are your rights? I saw a guy that was a real estate agent showing a house to a client on a Sunday. So he grabs the hidden key, whatever, goes inside. The neighbor across the street used to be an old police officer. He calls the police. They have guns drawn on this guy that had an appointment with the owner of the house to show this house to a client. It's just because how they were dressed, they were treated a different way. And then you go into another one. A man was walking his dog. His kids are on the front lawn in Texas, a black man. And this cop goes around and says, "That's not your dog." He was like, dude, like crazy.
Like what?
Rolls up and tries to say this guy was wanted from New Orleans, says his name, and the guy's like, "That's not my name." His wife whips out the phone, and this guy's like, "This is you." He's like, "You don't even know my name. You didn't even look up my address. You don't even know who I am, but you're trying to say me." And he's like, "Well, just come to the car with me." He's like, "I'm not going anywhere." And this guy was like, "This is a big buff," and this guy was grabbing his hand. It's like, "No, and like it was emotional. This is before George Floyd. This is before this, and I'm just like, it got to the point where you have to be taught hidden rules. And I had to teach some of my friends that would speak out. If you're black, you have to be taught, "Oh, don't do this. When you go into a store, make sure you have the receipt, make sure you have a bag. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't dress a certain way. Don't look at this person like this." And I told my friend back, we were gathering, and it was when the curfews were going for COVID-19. And he was like, "Well," I told him I was afraid I wanted to get home before midnight. And he was like, "It's not a big deal. If a cop pulls you over, just tell them where you're going." And another friend was like, "Yeah, it's not that big deal. I get pulled over all the time." And I'm like, I don't want to be pulled over. I don't want any kind of because that was, and I hate to say it, that was a difference of privilege. That was a difference of, and something that I think of LaCour knows. My grandpa was a police officer, 20 years, did 20 years in Air Force, 20 years in this. And he retired 2009. And he was at the time the only black officer on that force for a while. And same thing, I had a student that his mom is the only highway patrol that's black. And I fear for them. And I'm thankful that my grandpa retired, because yes, you do have those good cops, and yes, you do have those bad cops. And those good cops are trying to, they're trying to make things up with the community. They have neighbors, they have, you know what I'm saying? And it's fearful for them to go out every day. But it's also fearful the people you're trying to protect. And earlier in the video, we talked about power and stuff like that. And I'm like, they're supposed to be, I love Spider-Man, I love Superman, I love superheroes. To me, the police officers are close to what superheroes are supposed to be. And I love reading those stories. Yeah. I love reading the stories, like a man pulls over someone at Walmart because Walmart called and this guy was circling around. He had like 4 kids and a baby while driving. And that officer pulled up, talked to him, went into that store, found the mom, bought car seats, taught the mom how to put car seats in the back of their car. Yeah. And I'm like, those are superheroes. And when I see that stuff right there, I'm just like, man. And there's and you've seen the stories, sheriffs and police officers around the United States that are in support and so forth. And I fear for them. I fear for them. And that's it. It's just a.
I think like when we go through that, I know because there's this push and movement again where it's like Blue Lives Matter and everything like that. It seems like every time that we talk about like Black Lives Matter and everything like that, it's always like Blue Lives Matter too, and cops are in danger and everything like that. And I look at that, and I think a couple of things. I'm like, well, yes, it's a dangerous job, and someone's got to do it. And so
it's like the 12th most dangerous job.
Yeah, but it's
not
still
even
dangerous
top
nonetheless. But it's still dangerous.
It's not even like top 10. Like it's like 15th or something. The stats are there.
I think it also matters like in the city because you don't know who you're interacting with and you don't know how their emotion is. And like it's tough to keep your emotions intact and try to account for someone else's emotions. And even for me, someone that's like a grandson of a police officer, I am terrified of police officers unless I know that police officer. Like I've had a job where I had police officers shop and you get to know them because I'm like, oh, they like the same thing. And that's that community building. But then when you have what you see in the media and how things are reacting and then how it sucks.
What I was going to say is like, so if we know this because we actually live this every day, but shockingly enough, not all Black people are bad, right? What? Right? It's crazy.
Oh.
I know some people maybe
all this stuff. You think about all this stuff?
Hey, it's a shock, but not all Black people are bad. Just so you know that, right? But what ends up happening is that you hear stories of gang violence and things like that from back in the day, and you hear stories or you see like Black people portrayed on TV and things like that as thugs, and you hear rap music, and without context, it sounds very aggressive and dangerous and things like that because it's not something that's in my everyday norm. So then when I see a Black person, I have all those things that program me to think that Black people are dangerous that come up all of a sudden, right? What's happening is that now the police officers are going through the exact same thing that Black people are going through in the sense of like, hey, yeah, maybe not all police officers are dangerous, but I mean, I've seen Training Day. I've seen episode of Cops. I've seen LAPD Live. I've seen how you're treating us, like just through videos and things like that. And obviously, like this may not be all of you, but these few that you're showing us through the media, the same way you did with Black people, is what's showing me that you're dangerous and what's creating that sense of fear inside of us. So, and it's interesting that like people can see it one way as like, oh no, like Black people are bad. Well, what Black person have you met that was bad? Well, my uncle, cousins, nephews, brothers, sister-in-law said this, right? Well,
that's not your experience.
Saw them pull me over, right? So it's one of those. It's like everyone is living vicariously through someone else's experience, and so because of that, everyone operates at a state of fear for no reason. Right. And
race
then go ahead.
Go ahead. Race is a human-made thing. Race is a human-made thing, and stereotyping comes from how you were raised and in your experiences. And like you said, you're getting that from background of people. I agree 100%.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'll say too is like, so I know for a fact that just like most people are like, oh, I don't want to drive down this neighborhood because this is possibly a dangerous neighborhood. It's unfamiliar with me and everything like that. But I'm gonna just take you back. So let's say you're driving through Arkansas and you're in a wooded area and your car breaks down, and all of a sudden you start hearing banjo playing. Do you get scared?
I'm out.
You out, right?
I'm way more worried.
I stay away from little towns. I stay away from little towns.
But
I don't go to little towns.
What's trained you to that? Have you ever met anybody that's played a banjo? No. Have you ever? You've only seen depictions of these type of people through forms of media. But
there are little towns in the state we live in that like we probably shouldn't go to.
Oh no, but it's definitely there. But I'm saying like it doesn't matter like Black, white, or other. If you're out there, your car break down, and the first thing you hear is the down, right? You're like, oh snap! Like I'm about to run into somebody with like messed up teeth, got some moonshine in the back, and might eat me. right?
Yeah.
These
I look
are
at my
just
car. I look at how much gas I have left. And I'm like, all right, here we go. I need a
Right.
civilization.
and then
Yeah.
these are stereotypes that just travel across like different races and things like that. But it's only for whatever reason the black ones that people are like fear for my life afraid of, right? And so I think that narrative itself has to be changed. And I think what's really cool, and I kind of like transition into like some of the positives that's coming of it, is like even though the looting sucks, right, and the riots suck because it's damaging property and things like that, and the protests are inconvenient, it's actually making noise though, right?
Yeah.
Laws are getting put in place and things are getting changed, right? Now, do these laws help everybody? No, but the fact that we're starting on our path and we're getting a unified voice to talk, and it's not just like black people now screaming out like, "Hey, stop being racist towards me." We now have like other people who are now allying that are saying like, "Hey, stop being rude and racist towards them too." And I think that's something that has never happened before. Like not publicly, like privately, it's always been like, "Yeah, brother, I'm with you," right? But like
Right.
you've never seen it's so like active on Facebook and just out in Twitter sphere, and just when you're walking around, just people of non-color just actively showing like, hey, we can't continue to do this. And
Right.
so I think we are
I think
on the path. Go ahead.
I think the amount of incidents has gotten, and like you were saying earlier, CP, because of cell phones, because of the internet, because of Twitter, social media, I think the amount of incidents has gotten to a point where even people who never experienced it themselves or never saw it themselves, or always was like, yeah, of course that's wrong, but they never felt it. They have seen too many at this point. They're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it happened one time and I was like, that's crazy. And then it happened again in a different state. And it's like, wow, is this a problem? But then fast forward and it's been 3 or 4 years and you've seen one
That's been
after
longer
the
than that.
other. No, I'm just saying, like, even if it was for you personally, if it was 3 or 4 years ago when you started experiencing on the internet, like, oh, this is a thing, I've never experienced that. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, it's like you've seen dozens, you've seen I don't know how many, and depends on another thing. Like if you wanted to look into it yourself, you see more and more, and you're just like, no, there's a problem here where black people doing regular things, going to a house, walking outside, being in their own backyard, literally outside of their own house, are being assaulted, beaten up, or in worst cases, actually killed for no reason. It's like, yeah, there's an amount where I think people just couldn't shy away from it anymore. And yeah, the only reason we're there is because of cell phone videos and security camera videos and things like that.
And I want to go with something. Speaking of when I started watching the video, the first 9-minute video, I looked at my wife because I watched it first, and then I showed her. And because, like I said, we watched Trevor Noah, we watched a lot of different news outlets, and when she saw it, like, I was disgusted and angry, but it wasn't the first time I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the first situation that I've seen something like that. But how it affected her, I was concerned about her mental health. Then I started worrying about my own mental health. And then YouTube did something weird. I started there's this channel, it's called The Black Experience in other countries. And it's pretty much Asian countries, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, China. And these are black people that have left the United States and went over there to live. And every single video, they talk about how they make their money, how how successful. Like some of these guys are executives in Japanese branches. They said for the first time in their life when they came over, they feel safe.
Really?
And the only discrimination that they have against them, I'm talking Vietnam. I'm not going to say China because I didn't see one for China. Vietnam, South Korea, Japan. They feel safe. And the only discrimination that they get is because they're a foreigner.
Yeah.
But they feel actually safe. And for someone that it hurts seeing someone like the United States is not supposed to be like that. You know what I'm saying? The United States it hurts. And I cried once because I saw that. And I just, because you can feel it. And you read the comments section, everyone's saying like when they say that, you can actually feel and believe that they are safe and they feel safe. And I'm like, it should not be that. It should be like this in your own country.
It should be like that everywhere.
Everywhere. And that's why you see protests everywhere.
Yeah. And what's cool about that, because like I grew up in Germany for a long time. I was in Germany for about 5 years. And what's really cool is like over there, like every military helps out with that too. When we over there, like it didn't matter like what race you were. Everyone hung out, everyone talked, everyone was cool, right? And then when we were in Germany, German people didn't like any of you. It didn't matter, black, white, other. So you were all
because you're American,
not liked because you were American, which was a very unique experience to have. When all of you guys, regardless of your race, are like in trouble, right? And no one in particular.
That's kind of normal though. Like if you go to another state, and they're like, oh man, like if we went to Texas right now, you had a big OU shirt on. If I went to Texas and the only reason they didn't like me is because they thought I was an OU fan, I'd be so cool with that. I'd be like, yeah. I'm cool.
But it's not your first thought. Your first thought is something else, and then it trickles down into this. Like, and I had a friend. This was like 2:00 in the morning. I'm over here just trying to play my game, and then he said something. He said, "All lives matter."
Oh no, man!
And I was like, "That's true," but right now, we're trying to. It set me off. It set me off. We're trying to equally get abused like everyone else. We're trying to get punished for the same crime as everyone else. Like if Exhibit A, this person does it of this color, I want to be treated the same as that person. Same speed, same judicial process. And right now, it's not equal. Right now, you're telling someone that your race or your life is lesser than this person's life. Once we fix that, then we can do everything. But he's saying if we just focus on that, it's going to bring everyone down. And that just... I was
no. I mean, I read or heard the same thing, and it was like police kill white people too, and it was like, yeah, they do. So you should be mad. Like, you should equally be mad. But instead, they're like, it's like, it happens to us too, so it's not a big deal. And it's like, why are you okay with that? What kind of? I don't understand the defense of like, yeah, that house is on fire, but I also need help with my house. It's like, sure, but not really. Yeah. Your house isn't on fire. That house is on fire. The firemen go to the house that's on fire. They don't go to all the houses. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't understand the rationale there.
You should not have to be afraid. And I use a lot of examples, and those hidden rules, like parents, like I stress out having a kid, even as a teacher. Now I was already worried about the pandemic and COVID, how it affected my kids not being in school for a while, and what they're going to come back. Like, did their parents lose their job? Are their needs being met? And now I have this on top of it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to have to address. You don't know what mental issues, because as an adult, I'm having mental issues. Not like going crazy, but you have mental stress, mental fatigue.
Yeah. Like, and you think about it when
you hear people talk about, like video games, violence, all this stuff. Look what's out there. How many kids do you think saw that?
I'll
be honest with you, if they have a cell phone, they probably saw it. No matter what. And I'm like, as a parent, you have to address it. As adults, we have to address it. And it's our job to protect them. But when I'm seeing videos of like generations of protesting, and then they're looking at the young ones and saying, this is what we can do. And we're hoping your generation can get it further. And I'm like, our job as adults is to make sure the next generation comes up and they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be an obstacle. Your color should not be a hindrance or something you're supposed to build resilience of. No, that shouldn't have to be that way. And right now it is, and that's reality. And I've never been a fan.
It's very interesting. Yeah. Like we have all these videos that come out and things like that, and people will still discount it. That's not real. We're not seeing the whole story. What did they do? And everything like that. Like, they were only getting one perspective, but we will watch an episode of Cops and be on the cop side the entire time. But that's not real. That drama is like stirred up. We'll watch the Kardashians and we're just like, oh, the Kardashians is live, right? But again, all of this is just is reality. It says reality TV, but the reality of it is somebody's behind the scenes writing the script. And then when you look at like what's going on online and things like that, where it's like unscripted, hey, this is how we're living. That's fake. How is one how are you okay with one fake and not okay with the other? And so
So I had a. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, and so I was just gonna say, it's like, I know it's like I said, it's just a heavy thing to just kind of deal with, and you just kind of see on a daily basis. But like I said, we can focus on the negatives all the time. Like there are a lot of negative. It's very easy to look at the negative. Like the news sells the negatives. That's kind of how they make a lot of money. But I want to see, like, I want to kind of have that silver lining, or the light at the end of the tunnel, where it's like, what will come of it, right? What's our next step, or how can it be better, right? Because I can say that after I wrote my essay and I posted it online, the amount of love and support that I got from people that I wasn't expecting to get it from made me feel better, right? Like, hey, yeah, I got a lot of responses like, hey, I never knew this is how you were feeling with all of these things. Sorry if I ever made you feel this way. I didn't realize that this was
Yeah, I
an
got the
actual
same thing.
right?
I didn't write
And
an
so
essay, but I got the same thing.
even them saying that back to me made me feel good. But I was like, I hope that I can affect somebody else who maybe had a negative thought to begin with. And I think that it's starting to kind of make those conversations come up to light, and you're realizing like who thinks like that, and you can have those real heart-to-heart conversations to see like, hey, at the very least, just acknowledge it's wrong. You may not have to change what you're doing. Just say that it's wrong, and then we can move from there.
Right. It's easier to change yourself than it is to change someone else. And that's,
Yeah.
and if a person can just reflect and admit that that is wrong, and you keep hearing the thing like white privilege and so forth. And like, if you have a platform, use your platform, say a voice, or like we have people out there protesting that aren't even Black. Join.
Yeah.
Help. You can help in so many different ways. And I think people forget that everybody has a voice. And if you choose not to use it, shame on you. That's really is shame on you. But you have the right not to share your voice too. But change yourself at least, and be supportive. And if you see something wrong, have the courage to call it out. Seriously. I mean, that's feel like we're back in elementary school when we go to that. But it's like we forgot like the fundamentals of that. So
I saw a really good post. It was about school, and it was basically at the people, like you're saying, that are on Facebook right now, and they're the one person arguing against 30 other people, saying like, oh no, that was a fake video. It's like, look, if you're the only one out of all your friends that thinks something is fake, you're probably wrong. You might be right, but if you're the only one that's defending something that happened, and all of your friend groups thinks it's morally or ethically wrong, like, you should probably just kind of internalize and think a little bit. But it was the post was like, we're living through things that have happened through history, and our history as a country has already dealt with this kind of stuff. It's like, if you're on the other side right now, it said you're literally failing an open book test. And I was like, that's a good point. I was like, we've already dealt with this. Anybody who wants to say like, oh, Martin Luther King peacefully protested, it's like, yeah, and then they killed him. Like, do you not understand what happened right after?
Yeah. He just died of natural causes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bring this up. I have so many things to go through with this, and I brought it up to another friend. Again, when they say that one little thing, you're just like, all right, as the friend, I got it. I'm like, I had someone like, I get on, I haven't talked to him, I'm on play my game. Everyone got off, and he's just like, CP, how are you feeling, man? I'm like, he's like, how are you feeling with all the current stuff happening? I'm like, good, He was like, do you want to talk about it? I'm like, it's a long story, man. He's like, can you just give me the cliff notes? And I'm like, all right, here we go. And I love parents out there that say, oh, I want you to be a doctor. Oh, I want you to be a lawyer. Oh, I want you to be this. I want you to be that. Those positive enforcing parents. But when you have a race where you have to tell your child, when you get pulled over, do this. When you get this situation, do this. You see what I'm saying? That's not positive reinforcement. That's teaching them how to survive, because they want their child to come back home alive. And I don't think it should ever be that way. I really do not think it should ever be that way. And
I told somebody a year ago that that's a conversation that we have. I was like, that's a conversation that we have. That's a real thing.
It's
And
a
they
real
just,
deal.
they just didn't believe me. They were like, no, that doesn't happen. I was like, you can ask. I was like, you can ask any black person anywhere in this room around you, which there was a good handful. I won't say where we were at, but there was a lot of, people of every gender, color, race, whatever. A lot of people around us. And I was like, no. You can go ask any single person in here if they've ever had that conversation from somebody older than them, telling them, or if they've ever told somebody younger than them, because, there's people there who have kids and stuff. And they were like, I just don't think that's a thing. If that's something that you experience, then that's a personal issue. And I was like, okay. Like, I knew right then, I was like, this is somebody that I can't actually trust.
I dread having that conversation. LaCorn, Elsie, you have kids, and I dread having, like, when I have a kid, I'd rather have the sex talk than have that talk. I'm like, I'm saying, I'd rather.
So my situation with my kids is gonna be so much different than that.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I mean, I can have that talk with my kids. But, I mean,
if we get pulled over, you were driving, I was in the car.
I feel like it's that Dave Chappelle thing where he's like, he has that guy named Dave on the side, and he's like, they get pulled over, and he's all like panicking. He's like, relax, and he's just like, how can I help? And like, I'm like, there's a
no, but I think that's one of the things that and we're a little bit over time, but I'll say this and one other thing, and I'll let you all kind of say your closing statements. But one of the things that I do fear is, like, when I do have, like, my own biological child, it's like, man, I don't want to have that conversation with them, because then the moment, so you have that conversation with them, or they will see it. Those are your only two options. Like, and
you would rather them be prepared for it.
I would rather them be prepared for it than unprepared. And so that kind of hurts as a dad. You're thinking, like, man, I'm going to have to tell my son, like, or daughter, hey, if you get pulled over, this, that, and the other. And then if they ask me why, it's gonna be even harder to explain to them, hey, I know I've been telling you that you're special and you're amazing and you're gonna be able to do great things, but other people don't see that. This is how they're going to see you. So I want you to be protected so that I can see you again the next time. And just thinking about that, that's kind of like, that's a tough statement to talk to your child about. And so I think that, like, and that's heavy. It's like, and now that I'm a parent, and I think back, like, my mom was the one that had a lot of those talks with me and everything like that. And I'm like, man, that had to be hard for her, thinking like, hey, my son is going out and hanging out, especially, like, we were in Colorado Springs. We were in, like, Colorado Springs, Washington, Kentucky. Like, we were in, like, predominantly white areas. So I can just even imagine even more just thinking about, like, oh, like, will I see him again? Like, just thoughts like that. And so, like I said, so that's a hard thing to say, but I will say that I hope that from all of this, parents are having those talks, not just like black parents teaching their children, like, how to, like, I feel like, I hope all parents just be like, hey, I don't know what you're doing in school, but if you're treating somebody else rude, cut that out. Right. I hope that are the conversations that we're having. And then for outside of that, it's like, hey, treat people like people. At the end of the day, if we treat people human and like people, we will get rid of all issues. And then if you think about like this, like the Black Lives Matter movement, if a law goes into effect that helps out black people, on the document, it's not going to specifically say, don't kill black people. It's going to say, don't kill people, which means whatever helps out black people helps out all people. It's strange. And so there's no point of like fighting it or coming against it and everything like that. Yes, every life is important, and we're not saying that those lives aren't important. We know they're important. We're saying that particularly like right now, part of the human body has a broken leg. And we're not going to go and do arm reconstruction surgery when the arm is fine. We need to heal the leg. So that's my closing statement. I'll let you go, CP.
So this is going to be, everyone loves Bruce Lee, right? You got the Bruce Lee 30 for 30 coming or whatever, right? And there's a scene in there And he asked him, so are you Asian? Are you Chinese? Are you Asian American? And Bruce is like, why can't I just be human?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap. Even now, I was like, oh wow.
And you have to listen to him because he'll beat the shit. Not just
yeah, and I'm like, even from that perspective
can't fight him.
Again, I try to look for the future. I thought that my generation would never see a war. I don't want my kids to ever see a war in their generation. And hopefully, I thought after I was ignorant then when we had Obama be president. You have two different sides. You have those that want to be optimistic, and then you have still the community that think old-fashioned like. And I remember when before the inauguration for him, I had some family. I call them my kinfolk because they come from Texas, and they say kinfolk. And they honestly thought he was going to be shot and killed. He wouldn't make it to his term.
Yeah.
Because they saw it in something similar in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. But then that fear, I'm thinking like, oh crap. And after all that's said and done, I was like, okay, but then you start seeing civil race issues popping up. And right now, I hate to get political with it, but you see it all around. Normally, we need empathy and we need support. And we're getting that, but we're also getting these weird pushbacks. And that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And again, if you're someone in power, our country comes from a strength of union, not dividing.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeing the ripples and we're seeing the consequences of that right now. And I think it needs to be more of a unity. So we get patriotic when things go wrong. We step up. Like, you don't touch the United States. If you touch the United States, it's going to be a backhand and then some coming at you. And
pretty much.
But if we need to apply that same mentality inside the country.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big deal. I get emotional on it, but
it's an emotional subject.
Yeah.
All right, James, I'll let you have your last statement.
I mean, I'm gonna say a short one, and then I'll try and wrap it up. But again, like, people want to point out the rioters and the looters and things like that, and obviously nobody wants that to be the cause or the result, but nobody wants a police officer of any color to kill anybody of any color wrongfully. It's like two wrongs obviously don't make a right, but there are, because you were saying positive notes. I mean, there are things that are changing, and like Ferguson, for example, is doing a very good job of like working together with the community, police officers and everybody else. There hasn't been any rioting and things like that, but I was like, but there was last time. So, they're the ones, they specifically said, like, the last time, we'll never let this happen again. And it's like, good, like, we got there. Now, was it a great time getting there? No, it was hard. People lost businesses, things like that. Insurance is very helpful, obviously. But like, sometimes it takes those types of steps to make change happen, at least to make change happen in like a reasonable time. Because, you can always just say, oh, it'll be better. It'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better next year. And it's like, it doesn't always get better fast enough, especially when it comes down to, like, people's everyday lives. But I'm not saying, go out there and riot and stuff, but like, there are some positive results coming from the past 10 years or so of the internet showing these things happening. But anyways, I'll just try and wrap it up. I mean, there is a lot of actual conversation happening. I've seen a lot more on the internet. I've seen a lot more on the actual news. I've seen a lot more person to person. I've had people text me or message me or something to be like, hey man, like, I just want you to know, like, I've never tried to do anything that would make you feel a certain way. And I'm like, you know what, thank you. Like, it almost matters more that if they would have done something, that they thought about it, that they were like, I don't think I have, but if I have, let me know.
Yeah.
And like the fact that people are learning now and accepting that this is a thing is a positive, regardless of if a law changes or if a law is created or not, whether it's Black people specific, whether it's all people, whether it's defunding the police, whatever laws and legal things pass, it won't matter if the general person doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because police officers, just like the rest of us, are just people. Now, that's a good thing because they're people. It's also a bad thing because they're just people. You know, they don't see laws as, you know, set in stone. Like, they have their opinions. And if you have a bad police officer that gets out there, it's just the same as having a criminal out there. Like, it's not any different.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think things are getting better. You know, I'm happy for that, but at the same time, yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on, so we will, you know, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, I know this has been heavy. It's definitely heavy and somber. No one likes talking about their own mortality and kind of how they feel about it all. One thing I will ask, and this would be like homework for the comment section and homework for ourselves as well, is that do you think that we can heal from this in our lifetime? Right? Because like right now is like we have a scar. It's a huge scar. Right? Yeah. Every single time the scar every time the wound almost heals, someone picks at it and it opens up that wound, we start bleeding again. And so like now there's a huge wound that we're having that we're trying to heal and fix. Do we feel like by the time we meet our deaths, like an old age preferably, that we will be able to get over the hurt and racism will probably not be ended, but really quelled and dulled down to the point to where like we no longer have to stress or worry about kids coming home safely or interaction with police officers or just people in general where it could be taken negatively? Do you feel like within that time we'll be able to heal and not pass this on to the next generation? Some food for thought. I definitely want to hear about it. Definitely want to talk about it. But hey, fam, appreciate you guys sticking through, listening. Definitely want to know your thoughts. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Spotify. Everywhere you can hear podcasts is where we're at. Next week, we'll bring some funny to you, kind of lighten it up a little bit. We won't be dull all the time. And we love you guys. Be out.